Welcome to the Get Fit Guys quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield. I'm the Get Fit Guy, and in this episode, you're going to get 5 ways to lower cortisol and beat stress. Little known ways that you may not be aware of. So I had a past article that I wrote about, and in that article, I talked about identifying stress. I'll link to that over at quickanddirtytips.com. Just check out the show notes to this episode number 275. Now, I wrote about the adrenal glands and the 4 stages of adrenal exhaustion, and these stages of adrenal exhaustion were first identified back in the 1950s. When a guy named Dr. Hans Selye conducted experiments creating stress in rats. In those experiments, poor little rats were forced to tread water with their legs tied together until they became exhausted and died. Sad, I know. Dr. Selye then removed the adrenal glands from the rats at various stages of drowning and discovered that the adrenal glands respond to stress in several distinct stages. In the initial stage, they enlarge and the blood supply to them increases, but as stress continues, the glands begin to shrink. Eventually, as the stress continues, the glands reach a completely depleted state of adrenal exhaustion. Well, this makes sense because in a stressful situation, your adrenal glands are responsible for causing your body to release the stress hormone cortisol, raising your blood pressure, transferring blood from your gut to your extremities, increasing your heart rate, suppressing your immune system, and increasing your blood clotting ability. These glands work really hard to allow you to survive, but this response is supposed to be short-lived, not a constant treading day after day. For example, if your ancestor was walking through the forest and saw a wild animal, her adrenal glands might kick in. Her heart rate would increase, her pupils would dilate, the blood would go out of her digestive system into her arms and legs, her blood clotting ability would improve, she would become more aware, and her blood pressure would rise. At that point, she'd either pick up a weapon and try to fight the animal, or perhaps run. And if she survived the ordeal, the chances are that it would be a while before a similar strain was put on her adrenal glands, and she'd have plenty of time to relax, eat, recover, and play until then. Well, our adrenal glands still work the same way, but most of us don't give our bodies the luxury of a recovery period after we're overworking those glands. As a result, we suffer from the ravages of chronic stress. Constant stimulation of your adrenal glands cause a decrease in your immune system function. So if you're under constant stress, you tend to catch colds and have other immune system imbalances like allergies or exercise-induced asthma. Blood flow to your digestive tract is decreased, so you're more prone to things like irritable bowel or constipation or diarrhea. The increase in blood clotting ability from prolonged stress can even lead to formation of arterial plaque and heart disease. The list of deleterious repercussions from stress goes on and on. So, to effectively care for your adrenal glands, you need to eliminate excess stress from your life while maximizing your stress-fighting capabilities. Although emotional stress is what most people think of when stress is mentioned, there are many other forms of stress that you must manage, like thermal stress from exposure to temperature extremes, chemical stress from pollution, rapid changes in blood sugar or pH, ingestion of food additives, molds, or toxins, and of course, physical stress from heavy physical work, overexercise, poor posture, spinal and structural misalignments, and lack of sleep. Although there are a plethora of ways that you can lower cortisol and reduce stress in your life, especially if you're a hard-charging exercise enthusiast, which you might be if you're listening to this podcast, you can reduce the propensity for adrenal fatigue or recovery from overtraining. And in this article, I'm going to focus on 5 little-known ways to lower cortisol and beat stress, methods that I've personally implemented. Now, allow me to introduce you to a friend called Shinrin Yoku. Shinrin Yoku is not, in fact, the chef at a local romantic sushi restaurant I'm recommending you choose for date night, nor is Shinrin Yoku some never-before-seen contortionist version of Kama Sutra. Shinrin Yoku is, in fact, the Japanese term for forest bathing. And no, I'm not referring to a kinky hot tub in the forest. I'm talking about walking on a nature trail in a forest, near an arboretum, or anywhere else where you are immersed in the sights, sounds, smell, and feel of nature. It's been clinically proven to expose you to high levels of plant and tree chemicals that lower salivary cortisol. And although known as forest medicine, it can also mean taking in the forest atmosphere. This concept was developed in Japan during the 1980s and has become a cornerstone of preventive healthcare and healing in Japanese medicine. There's a huge amount of scientific literature on the health benefits of spending time in a living forest, including boosted immune system functioning, lower blood pressure, increased ability to focus, accelerated recovery from surgery or sickness, and increased sleep quality. So, how can you use this concept of Shinrin-yoku to lower cortisol and stress? Well, I've got 5 quick and dirty tips that don't involve you moving to the mountains or driving to a forest. Number 1 is pine, evergreen, or cedar essential oil. Now, essential oils that have been extracted from plants and trees and subsequently concentrated into tiny bottles have been shown to have the ability to lower cortisol in the same way that a relaxing walk through the forest would. I personally sprinkle these oils in my sauna, on my upper lip, or pour them into the air in my office by using something called a cold air diffuser. When you walk into my office, it literally smells like a forest. Now, if you go to my website, greenfieldfitnesssystems.com, and do a search there for essential oils, you'll find plenty of information, including a podcast on essential oils and exactly how to use them and which are best for lowering stress and cortisol. Number 2 is a log or a stump. Yes, you heard me right. Next to my standing desk, I have a beautiful old stump that I found out in the forest. Upstairs in my living room, I have a big, uniquely shaped bark-covered log that I also harvested from the forest. And sure, these aren't the same as a whole tree, complete with leaves or flowers, but by placing these pieces of nature in specific places in my house, I can add a touch of natural beauty while also getting the functionality of being able to put a foot up on the stump while working or sitting on or against the log in my living room. Number 3 is NASA houseplants. NASA has found that specific houseplants can clean the air, reduce toxins in your home, and even cause this relaxing, de-stressing effect. In no order of importance, these plants include ferns, Gabbara daisy, philodendron, spider plant, snake plant, Chinese evergreen, and golden pothos. I'll put a link over in the show notes at quickanddirtytips.com for this episode number 275, if you want to learn more about these studies done on houseplants and what they can do for your stress. Number 4 is a negative ion generator. Now, a high amount of something called negative ions are found near running water and fresh air on the beach, etc. And these ions are what give you that awake, aware, and relaxed focus when you're in clean, fresh outdoor environments. Now, you can get affordable negative ion generators for just over $20. You plug them into an outlet in your house. They aren't much larger than a golf ball, and they pump out those same ions into any room in your house. I personally have one in both my bedroom and my office. Next is your windows. You've no doubt heard that occasionally being a bit chilly or having the temperature in your house frequently fluctuate can actually be beneficial for your metabolism and fat loss, but you can also get fresh air, negative ions, cortisol, and stress-lowering scents wafting in through the window when you simply leave the window open in your office or your home. Even if you live in an urban area, you'd be surprised at how much more natural things can feel when fresh air is pouring through a window. Finally, I don't want you to get me wrong. Exercise isn't bad. Exercise can reduce stress. In his book, Spark, author John Rady talks about in great detail how exercise grows brain cells, improves mental functioning, allows for better focus, and significantly reduces stress. I'd recommend you give that book a read. But there's also a law of diminishing returns, and as I tell you in my episode, How Much Exercise is Too Much, you often need far less exercise than you'd think to lower stress or risk of chronic disease. And if you're a hard-charging person who has perhaps been putting too much stress on your body from exercise, relationships, work, travel, toxins, etc., and you're discovering that overexercise or too much stress is disrupting sleep, fat loss, or health, then you may want to incorporate these 5 little-known ways to lower cortisol and beat stress. Well, if you have more questions about any of these tips, then you can join the conversation over at facebook.com/getfitguy. That's facebook.com/getfitguy. And until then, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.